Brian Borzakowski at the Canadian Business Leadership Forum, and I'm here with Paul Kedrosky, a senior fellow at Kauffman Foundation, an investor, technology analyst, and all sorts of other things. Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
So you were talking a bit in the speech just before about energy opportunities, and Canada is so reliant these days on our commodities with manufacturing down and the dollar increasing pressure on exports. What does the changing energy landscape mean for our country?
Well, a couple of things. So, one obviously means that fundamentally Canada's in a fantastic position from an energy standpoint because you are the largest single provider. This country is the largest, not you personally. This country is the largest, you should be so lucky, the largest provider of oil to the United States, which is the largest import market for oil in the world. And so in some sense, you don't have to do anything. You're standing there in the catbird seat and everything's fantastic. But the longer answer is that there's a transition underway, and many countries, the U.S. included, Canada also, are sort of transitioning in some sense away from such a central reliance on oil and towards more things, in particular clean technologies. And so there's opportunities across the landscape in clean technology. At the lowest level, analogous to oil, Canada has incredible reserves of rare earths. Rare earths are fundamental to many of the emerging clean technologies, whether it's supermagnets or wind generation. So there's opportunities at the resource level in clean technology, much like there is in the old petroleum economy. And as you continue to go up the stack, though, the opportunities become even more diverse the further you go, whether it's in solar or in wind or in some of the biofuels and other things that are emerging. And the great thing for Canada is that you've got something to fall back on, which is you've got these rare earth reserves. But as you go up the stack, you have something else important to bring to bear, which is lots of experience in energy you can transfer over from oil, but also among the most skilled and trained workforces in the world, in particular in science and engineering.
So you think Canada can capitalize on these transitions?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think Canada is among the best equipped countries in the world to capitalize. The only challenge for Canada will be, it's the same old problem. If you think about it as a company, is let's say I got this one really successful product. There's always this temptation, even when you see things happening in the marketplace, to not cannibalize it. Because you say, well, it's everything. It's our most important product. But you always should try to cannibalize your key product before someone else does. The product that Canada is going to have to cannibalize before someone else does is oil.
And how are we going to do that?
Well, this is the path, through
right.
Rare earths and clean technologies, and always fight the temptation to say, well, wait, if we're successful here, that's going to hurt us here.
Right.
And it really doesn't matter, because you have to cannibalize yourself before someone else gets the chance. So
what about technology? I mean, Canada's we have RIM, but that's sort of it. So why hasn't Canada been able to be as successful in tech as we have been in commodities?
Well, tech's a different story in a sense because you're so close. The fundamental answer is, I always say, is tectonic plates. You're just too damn close to the United States. Nothing that a giant earthquake couldn't solve, and suddenly everything's solved. So people flow back and forth, not just people, but capital also, and ideas flow back and forth. And so the U.S. is this incredibly burgeoning, successful, dynamic market for taking new technologies to market and allowing entrepreneurs to be entrepreneurial. It kind of has this great sucking sound. It just sucks everything in, right? And so that makes things very difficult for Canada, unlike other countries like, say, Israel, which has an equally trained and talented workforce and lots of access to capital, but is far enough away that people can't just say, you know what, I'm just going to drive down to San Francisco. There's no driving. You can't go there. It's a major life transition to say you're going to make the change. And so the challenge that Canada has is that proximity. The proximity is a wonderful thing from the standpoint of being able to have people and capital flow back and forth, but the handicap is that people and capital flow back and forth. And that's been one of the primary things that's made it difficult, despite all of these great attributes, a wonderfully trained workforce, incredible scientists and engineers, and awareness of the possibilities of being entrepreneurial, dating back to RIM, or even Nortel's early days, or EA out west. There's an endless sort of list of these companies, and wonderful things Terry Matthews done in the Ottawa area with Newbridge and many companies since. Despite all of that, the question always is why, as we haven't had a kind of catalytic thing hasn't happened. Why hasn't the chemistry kind of gone and all of a sudden it starts sputtering and it all happens? And that's the reason. And so the answer is it just requires more patience here because of the proximity thing. And so it will happen. It's just never going to be as easy or as obvious as you would have expected given all the things this country has going for it.
Right. You said something interesting about Apple when they wanted to create the iPad, but they ended up making the iPhone, and the iPad came later.
Right.
What does that tell entrepreneurs? What lesson can they learn from that?
You always have to be aware of accidents. I mean, most of the more interesting entrepreneurs I know, almost in a sense, blundered into what they were doing. Not that they weren't trying to be entrepreneurial, but that if you had looked at the business plan, even if they had one, that said what they were going to do when they set out, one of the key years of being successful was that they didn't do what it said in the business plan. Not that they consciously said, oh, I'm going to screw over my investors by not doing what I said I would do. No, it's that the business plan and their ideas collided with the marketplace and collided with accidents, where they said, oh, you know what? This actually works better for that than this does, so let's do that, which is the story of the iPad and the iPhone, was that the story is that the original plan at Apple was more to do with tablet computers, and out of that early thinking was, wait a minute, this would actually work as a completely novel approach to doing phones. What do you mean, phones without keys? Yes, phones without keys, and that's the evolution.
So, as an investor, what do you look for in an entrepreneur?
So I want someone who's got an awareness that it's all about, I kind of like having, I say entrepreneurship is like being inside of an idea particle accelerator, that there's someone who's aware that it's all about collisions, that you really want all kinds of stuff colliding into each other all the time, who's aware of that. But at the same time, it's someone who's not looking out 25 years and saying, I have this bold new technology that will change the world someday, somehow. I much prefer people who say, I want to take they want to take a $10 billion market and turn it into a $1 billion one, which sounds, completely crazy. Like, why would I want a shrinking market? But that's not what you're really saying. What you're saying is, I want to grow to $1 billion, while the market shrinks radically from 10 to 1 because the incumbents won't be able to handle the game I'm going to give them as we go from 0 to $1 billion. Because I'm going to contract margins, we're going to do it without physical stores. The case of Netflix beating up on the video rental industry, or the case of Craigslist beating up on the newspaper classifieds industry. These were companies that grew incredibly quickly into existing markets by causing the existing market to contract. And I love those stories.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Brian Borzakowski at the Canadian Business Leadership Forum.